Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Just Deal with It. We had such great reviews with Lewis, but we had one con. They said we concentrated too much on the red flags, so we're bringing Lewis back for the green flags. Tamara, take it over.
Louis, thank you so much for coming back and joining us for this very interesting topic. Because, for us, figuring out men, sometimes it's very difficult. Considering we're two females, just talking about our own experiences a lot of the times, focusing on our own exes. Sometimes I even look back, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I shouldn't have disclosed that. But it's so wonderful to have you back. We just kind of wanna focus around talking about what to look for as far as green flags when you're meeting a man, when you're communicating with somebody. What does that look like? And a lot of the times, obviously, we all bring our own trauma into these relationships. So how do we differentiate between what we're feeling and what's actually going on? What's a green flag?
What we're feeling, what's going on. So yeah, thanks for having me back. It's so great to speak with you both again. And as being a mindset coach, executive coach who's usually speaking with men, I hear these different kinds of just venting, but also complaining about these different things. And when we take it to dating, just like we were saying during our last episode together, that everyone has a mask, right? I think both men and women have a mask when they first start dating and they're trying to get to know each other. And that's normal, to a degree. But what we're focusing on now in terms of, let's say, green flags, how do we know how much is too much? I think that's really something that we should be reflecting on while we're getting to know someone, right? So a couple of green flags, before we get into that, I'm sorry, your question was something else, not what the green flags are. Can you repeat your question one more time?
So my question was more along the lines of how do we not bring into the new our old feelings, the trauma, and recognize the green flags and not feel like they're red flags, in that sense? How do we kind of open up to that? Because a lot of the times the green flags might trigger something else, which is a red flag, right? Because we spoke about that in our last episode also.
What a great first question, because I don't think that's possible. I don't think it's possible to not bring in your previous kind of trauma or previous kind of misunderstanding or understanding. But it's not possible to not bring in the level of where you're at in terms of understanding your own emotional intelligence, understanding how to actually have productive conflict with someone else. You're coming in at a certain level. That's it. That's what you're doing. So I think that's a very good place to start, of just, when I decide to date someone new, when I start dating again, then wow, I will have to deal with this again. So that's a healthy place to come from. Like, wow, maybe in my last relationship I wasn't as great at communicating XYZ, or I get really triggered or upset when my partner starts talking about these different points, and maybe it's not such a big deal to other people, but it's a big deal to me. So that's a very healthy place to come from, the place of what upsets you, because if you know what upsets you, then you can start talking about it or doing something about it or working through it. And so to finish that, you're going to keep bringing in what you brought in from your last relationship. I think one of the most positive things you could do, and green flaggy kind of thing you could do, is being able to communicate that kind of pain you feel, if you want to call it, communicate some of your triggers or whatnot, either upfront, maybe not upfront, but let's say still in the beginning. Yeah, to the guy. Maybe, yes, I'm trying to clarify it really clear right now. Maybe you don't need to say all your triggers up front, but it's more so when you have something that is upsetting you that can lead to a trigger, then to be able to bring that up honestly. That's it.
So I want to list, I would think here, Lewis, a green flag with what you're saying, because part of me feels like a guy would look at that as being needy, right? Like, I would be like, oh my God, she may be a little much right now. This may be a little needy. I don't know if I want to deal with this. However, I think the green flag in this, what you're saying, is because I actually did this. I did this with my boyfriend. I was like, here I am. This is what I am. These are the things. And with him, he was like, all right, cool. And that was a green flag to me. He didn't run away. He accepted me in that. And he was like, all right, well, this is who you are. Great. I think the problem that I found within myself was that I started to overanalyze that. Like, it was that self-sabotage. So here I am being presented with this green flag, this guy that's like totally, and I was like, but
Mm-hmm.
is he okay with it? You know, and that's, I think, where women self-sabotage a
Mm-hmm.
genuine guy that is sitting
Mm-hmm.
here securely attached, knowing
Mm-hmm.
that we all have our flaws. And here the women are self-sabotaging. So
I
Right.
will speak on that also because my relationship currently, I did so much to self sabotage. I did so much to make him leave. I can't even tell you. From the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, when we just got, because the reason for it is because, you know, if you're listening to our podcast, obviously you know my story, what I've gone through in my past. And certain things that were coming up, which were supposedly normal, right? Like that come up in a relationship, would trigger me
Mm-hmm.
to be, oh, he's gonna leave. He's doing this because he doesn't want me. He doesn't want this relationship. And he would be like, what's
Mm-hmm.
wrong with you? I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just having a conversation with you. Why are you blowing up and freaking out? And
right.
so yeah, like this is what we bring into it. But here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
As the person, like let's say you're coming into a relationship with the green flags because you're
Mm-hmm.
healed, you're open, you can communicate. How do
Mm-hmm.
you deal with a person who's so traumatized, like in that sense? Like how do you process it as a man and say, hey, she's not crazy. She's just
Mm-hmm.
been through a
Well,
lot.
he's got like all
She's
these,
been through
like,
some shit. You know what I mean? Like,
So
so yeah.
language is important. So
Yeah.
let's take how you're describing the scenario right now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like for someone who's so traumatized, someone who has green flags, both of those are even subjective. You know, like how much of a green flag? You know, so like I can communicate pretty well. I worked on it really hard for decades now, for multiple decades already. I still am not perfect, right? I still have follies. I'm still fallible, right? So I have a I can say it because of a lot of work. I have a massive green flag for that, but I still make mistakes. So let's say even if I take myself in this scenario, right? Because I've even with my current partner who's great, you know, I've said some things which are not great. Being able to understand how I'm not perfect, and even if I have a good quality, that means I'm not perfect about it. If I take that mentality, since I take that mentality myself, like, okay, I have that grace or understanding or respect about myself, I can understand that the person who I'm talking to also has those things. They also have this air about them in certain qualities where maybe it's not so great. Maybe they all are also having traumatic tendencies during certain paradigms, right, around them. But if I know that, hey, I'm talking to them for a reason, and it's because they have this going on, wow, that I don't think is great, but they have X, Y, Z, so maybe they're incredibly caring, and that's a green flag I see, and wow, it's so much more in terms of their actions. And to make to kind of put a bow on that, I think it's just being able to have that kind of patience after that kind of communication, because for the first level is like knowing, and you have to, like, that's why I started with that in the previous question. You got to know yourself, but then nobody knows themselves completely. Like that's something that a lot of people like screw up on, but also it's something you could take with solace, like, oh, okay, I'm trying, but you could take a breath, like, I don't know. So if I don't know all of me, that's the same thing for my partner or the person who I'm dating. So if that's true, which it is, then that means I can actually say, okay, well, this is what I'm about. This is what I like, or these are my values. These are my standards. Like, okay, cool. So then what does that look like to you? How did the actions, should that be represented in the other person? Then you start taking things that maybe trigger the other person, or what something that's really upsetting them. And then just like the, what you said, Tamara, of like, okay, if this person's going to get, well, if you give an example, this person's getting so wild or like so crazy, right? This person's getting so crazy now, which is true, but they're having pain and fear. And before I start tangenting off, it's a lot of that. It's a lot of just, this person has pain, this person has fear. So how can I give this person the same kind of grace I'm trying to give myself? And that literally creates maybe more so of a green flag in someone.
Okay, so I have 3 things, so you might
Mm-hmm.
want to list this down.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, as women, we're emotional creatures, and for us, it's natural for us to communicate our emotions and feel like that's normal, right? For guys, they tend to be a little bit more avoidant, maybe not as, So, the question I have with what you just stated,
Mm-hmm.
number 1, how realistic is that for a guy to not feel annoyed with a woman? Like, is a guy really going to have that grace? So that's the first one. Or is he going to be like, I don't know. Number 2, I wanted to touch upon or get your input on a second green flag. I think that I would see is if the guy is willing to talk about his past relationships and talk about his contribution to what led it to the end. And the last thing is, would you have a list of things that women should be looking for that men do that are green flags that we may not see, we may overlook? I gave him so much homework, Tamara.
I literally wrote that down.
See, he's like, uh-huh.
This is part of listening. I'm trying to listen.
Totally.
Active listening. Take notes.
Yes. See, active listening. And I'm also active doing something. So for your first question, right? So how realistic for guys to feel these kinds of emotions? That was the first one. I know was that right?
Like, how realistic is it that a guy's gonna a woman would be like, oh yeah, totally, like I'm taking that in. But men typically tend to be more avoidant. So is a guy actually going to listen to a woman and be like, yes, like I'm totally here and you have grace, you have all these things, or is it going to be like, ooh, this is a little much?
So that's literally like a multifaceted segment of a question, like different parts to it rather, because first of all guys have emotions. So if they look like, and this can be a lot of the time, it looks like they're not taking something in, it looks like they're not caring about something, it looks like we're just being stoic about something, that's what it looks like. And so much, and so obviously I was having over several decades of being a guy, I can really say with confidence that there's so much there in terms of the content, emotional content that's there. The thing is, within our society and everything, it's not shown as much. And then even deeper, it's not known how to show that. Okay. But it's still there. That's what I'm trying to drive. These guys are going to be able to.
For a second.
Sure.
It's not, this is actually a good point you just made. It's not like taught to be shown. Is that kind of what I heard?
Yeah.
So that is something that I would say, like, as therapists, what we look at from girls and boys, which, by the way, is going to be another segment we're doing, raising girls versus boys. And I really try to teach, I have 3 boys, so I really try to teach my boys to really talk about their emotions and speak to me and their future girlfriends and wives about that. So what you're saying is that that's probably a really important point, so that as men, they feel comfortable in doing that and accepting it.
Right. One of the most important pieces of work, I think life work that anyone can do, is be able to understand themselves more deeply, like I was saying a little bit earlier, being able to verbalize what the emotions that they are having, and then be able to communicate what that means in the real world as to the things that they would like or don't like, or things they need to make happen. That's all. This is kind of what creates a persona, right? And how someone moves in the world. And so those are building blocks to an individual. And so, yes, it's realistic for guys to feel these things. But then what we're talking about within a lot of these questions is just the understanding of these things, right? So that's one thing I just want you to take away for the first question, is that these guys are feeling it. It might not look like it, and you don't know to what extent they're feeling it, but they are. That's an important place to start, because it's not negating the emotion. It's not throwing away the notion. It's not being able to say, like, you know what, this person's not even listening in the first place. They're not even feeling anything. Like, without me trying to go on a passionate tangent, there's so many men who are struggling just because they do not know how to actually communicate that. But also so many are on their own little hole of just not having either the support or feeling like the person they're speaking to, with the potential dating partner, can actually accept it or being open to it. So that's just the answer to your first question of the first part. Okay, so yes, it's realistic for the guys to have the emotions. And the question number 2 is that let me see right here, if guys are willing to have their past relationships to be able to speak about it, and what led to the end of that, right? That's the second question.
I see that as a green flag, which actually I think you kind of moved into that, the last answer you gave.
Okay.
I kind of feel like if a guy is willing to open up and be like, yeah, this is what happened, she was great, or things just didn't work out, I could have. I look at that as a green flag, because my red flag is, well, why don't you want to tell me about your past relationships? Because that's how we learn. Like, is this something I want or not? So when a guy's not willing to open up, I'm like, what's going on?
Okay, so I have a question around that. So if you want him to talk about his past relationships, but I think it's a red flag if he does it too soon. Like, if that's the first thing he talks about on a date, that's a red flag about his past relationships. Complaining. If he's on this date to complain and use you as a therapist, that's a red flag to me.
But we're not talking about red flags today. We're talking about
no. But I want to understand, what is a substantial amount of time that has to pass where it's okay to discuss these things, because in the beginning you're just getting to know the mask. The first couple of dates, it's one mask, two mask, like what he wants you to see. And then it unravels into
and I
what
get
it
what
really
you're saying, but my question was geared towards if I ask the question, I want to know. If he's bringing it up, he's like, oh my God, blah, 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 to your point. Yeah, that's a red flag. I'd be like, why are we on this date? You're clearly not over this person.
Mhm.
But if I ask the question, because I have asked the question multiple times, so what happened? 9 out of 10 times they will tell me. But that one person, I'm like, why won't they talk about it? Like, what's going
Mhm.
on? So if they're willing to talk about it, I feel like, okay, they've moved on, or maybe they're still processing, but they're at least being open.
Let me jump in. So literally what both of you had was a discourse of what a lot of us have in our heads, both men and women, So it's like, yes, I want to know this. Yes, I should know this probably sooner than later. And like, is it too soon? So when is the right time to actually know? That's what literally just happened right now. So a really short, I think, succinct way to view this would be that even in the first few instances of you meeting, being able to word things correctly, like, hey, what are some things that, let's say, you don't want to happen in your next relationship or your next relationship that happened in your previous relationship, right? Like, wording is important, and you can say that. That's literally the same question, just rephrased. And then if you meet each other a little bit more, start hanging out a little bit more, even a month or two, because you don't even need strict time frames, but a little bit more time, you can bring up the question of just, hey, what happened? Would you mind being able to tell me, like, what happened in your previous relationship? Like, because I just don't want to, I don't want to bring up negative stuff for you. I don't want to be that person that comes with a crazy thing, and like, if it's something I know I could have avoided, right? So if you have this conversation with the person, so either if you're man or woman, then that's beautiful. And then if you ask that question, you really need to be able to take in the answer of, sure, I can tell you this. I don't want to go deeper into it though. Not right now. I don't want to do that, right? And after that, you can add, and this is maybe like the key to that, right? Because I've done this also, even in my current relationship. I was like, okay, I told very specific things, and I said I don't want to go in deeper. And then I told her to be able to tell me, but we can talk about this deeper later on. And then what's a good question after that? It's like, okay, well, when would you want to talk? Like in a month from now? Or would you want to talk maybe in how long of a time? Like, when should I come back to you about this? Is that okay? So that's literally, because you're literally asking, and like many things, this can be like a mini framework, because you're asking to go dive into somebody else, into someone's psychology and someone's past, which it's theirs to share, right? But if you're looking to actually be in a relationship, that's also important to know. Right? So it's just really nice if you come in and from I think a guy's perspective, if you're just coming along in a way that's not that entitled, that's a great way to put it. Because a lot of times, both from guys and girls, it's just really entitled how it's come off. Like, why aren't you telling this, right? Let's take it to an extreme of just what you said, Sinead, right? So it's like, why is this person not telling me? Why I should be knowing, right? And if you take it, let's say even reverse roles, right? So I'm asking her how many experience she has doing X, Y, Z, or what. Why isn't she telling me? Well, that's probably because she's doing this. So it can go both ways, right? But if we're able to ask the question of just like, hey, what happened during that? But then being able to respect how much they want to share, I think that's a game-changing point.
Absolutely.
And then following up later. And
also, you have to be emotionally ready to accept what they're going to tell you.
Right.
Because somebody's going to tell you they used to be a stripper or something like that. Like, no, but like, seriously, like,
that's
you
real,
meet somebody, you have a great connection, you're going on these dates, you're loving this, and all of a sudden it comes out, and your whole perspective changes, because, maybe you grew up in a religious household, and this is like, you know what I mean? So you have to be emotionally and mentally ready to accept the things that they're going to deliver to you, because you're asking for it.
I have a question on that I really want to answer, Lewis. And this is to your point, Tamara. Okay, so what if a guy cheated on his ex, and he goes, well, I actually cheated on my ex. I mean, in one sense, I'm like, wow, this person's being honest and upfront, so not hiding anything. The other side, I'm like, well, once a cheater, always a cheater. So what do we do there?
One thing is
I stumped him.
It's important to give the appropriate way to share, because the important, I think, focal point first is that nobody's perfect. I try to think of these things as short as possible and then expand. So it's like, it's nobody's perfect, right? And so that's a pretty serious issue. And the fact is that we all have, like, relationships are built on trust. And what's interesting is that different things have different weight, different value to different people. Like, oh, you used to be incarcerated before. Okay, well, does that mean that you're a terrible person, that you shouldn't be around other people? I mean, not necessarily. I've actually even visited people who were incarcerated before, right? Okay, I like volunteered for some stuff. Okay, so it's like you actually were somebody who dated somebody because it was very materialistic. Like I maybe like either from a woman's side or even man's side, hypergamy or whatnot, right? Like, oh, I did that before, but now I want to find someone who I care about in a just a emotional and a spiritual level. I was like, okay, well, it sounds like you were after this person's money before. Why wouldn't you now, right? You're a woman speaking with the man, and the man actually says, like, you know what? I had this real big problem with anger before, and I really had this tough time being able to control it, and I actually even hurt some family members. That's terrible, right? But what these things, what they have in common is the notion that that was where they were, and that's not necessarily who they are, and or they're sharing that because they want to tell you that's not who they're trying to be, right? So that's that can be a green flag, right? But then just like Tamara said earlier, like by how much and when, right? Because still, if all these things, if I was actually faced with all these things with someone who I'm dating in the beginning, it's very important to be able to say, to be able to establish the structure of, okay, well, where are you trying to go with this, right? So if you take, let's say, the specific point that you said for cheating, right? Like, okay, well then what are you trying to do now? You know, like what's your focus on relationships now? Okay, well, I mean, what caused it before? You know, if you have a conversation with someone, which is what's like 80% of people are struggling with, right? Because it's like, oh wow, I can't even tell Sinead that I want to have a conversation around that because I don't even know how to handle it. Let's say if you do know, but it's just with the point of, well, I want her to like me, but then how can I even say these things? I don't even have. That's what happens in a lot of men and women. Like, well, I don't even. What if that kind of notion of seeing the ugliness, quote unquote, not from the individual, but we see it, the ugliness that we would see on ourselves. There should be a lot of empathy for that. But anyway, to give you a specific endpoint for this answer, like what I come from and what I literally do in my life in scenarios like this is like, okay, well, where are you trying to go with this? What is it that you're trying to do now? What was it that actually made that happen for you in the past? Like, what do you know what was missing? Do you know what was missing for you? Do you know what you need now to not do that again or to make this situation better? What actions are you taking now in terms of like to hold you accountable or on that road? Or like if we were to keep seeing each other, right? Like what would you want to see from me? What can I do to actually do that, right? And then all of those, you don't rapid fire questions. You have, just like Tamara said before, like a conversation. Like you have just a conversation. You can't get uppity and like you just have to have the patience. And then the most important part of all this, because that's a very important part, that you say these specific kinds of questions, that you get these kinds of answers, whether they be detailed or vague, you're saying them. And the most important part is being able to see their follow through. Is being able to see their follow through. So if you're telling me, if you're telling me that because I've dealt with this before, you're telling me that you're somebody who can communicate well, but then you can't have a conversation when you're, let's say, super upset and you get either violent or either if you get just, you cannot actually feel like you're like even trying to make a compromise. Well, it doesn't sound like you're actually very like a great communicator or trying to have that as focus now. But if that person is coming back and sharing the piece of, hey, or I'm sorry, or hey, this is actually what I messed up on, and we're aligning the ship little by little.
Yeah.
So
that's the way.
Is that there is consistency to what's being said and done.
Yes. And then all the last part about all that is that the grain of salt is that if sometimes too much is too much, right? Like I think I actually have a deep hate for people who put their hands on other people.
Yeah.
You know, for men and women and for women on men. Like I think it's like pathetic. Absolutely. Like it's really like a weak human, right? But they're still a human. And if they're moving in the right direction, right, sure. But I have a hard point. Like I can't deal with that in my life. Like I choose not to. So either if that's something you're working through, okay, that's cool. But either this is going to stop or we're not going to actually be together. So that's a line you create, right? For other people, maybe actually put up with it more, but you take that into every kind of paradigm that's important to you.
Okay, so I really want to get to this point, and I think we're going to go a little bit over our time, because I really want to get into, could you give us a list of things that you should be looking for? And I know that's kind of like broad. What are things that men do that, or even women, but we're asking you right now, Lewis, we can give the women tomorrow. What are things that men do to get a woman's attention that are genuine, that we may be overlooking? Green flags.
All the action they're trying to do is trying to get your attention, and is what matters is what that attention is for, right? So if they're trying to get your attention because like, hey, you're really cute, I want to like get to know you better. Okay, could just be that. Or hey, I want to get to know this person because I'm looking for a relationship. Okay, could be that. Hey, I want to get your attention because like I just want to hook up with someone and I think you're cute. Okay, it could be that. So what are green flags that of what men do to get your attention?
Genuinely, because we're not talking about getting someone into bed.
Okay, can you specify inside when you're in a relationship or when you're just initiating a relationship?
No, dating. We're talking about dating.
Okay,
right?
okay. So you're not approaching. You're already in it. That's what you're saying.
You're on date number 1, number 2.
Okay.
We don't know the person at all, and here's a guy. I'll give you an example. A guy is willing to answer your questions one way or another, right? I see that as a green flag.
But they can lie too, Shanae. You don't know that when they're telling you the answers.
They can't lie. That's not something that we find out until down the line, unfortunately. I also see, and I think that some people may disagree with me, but I like it when the man pays on the first date, at least. Because to me it shows, like, I mean, I'm gonna be 50, and so like maybe I'm a different generation as to many, but there is something about this masculinity that I feel, you know, the protector, the I've got you. I mean, I'm a very independent woman, but so I have no problem doing 50-50. But I think on the first date it's kind of like, hey, I want to like court you, I want to get to know you. So those are a couple of those. You know, I don't know, for me, it's about a man being a gentleman, asking you guys, having a really genuine conversation. But at what point is the guy either trying to get you into your pants or he's actually being genuine? And what are the things that we as women should be seeing that men try to do to really show interest in a woman, genuine interest?
Okay, so while Lewis is thinking, can I just say what my green flags are as a person who was dating and saw a lot of red? Okay, I would say, like, from my current relationship, I'm just going to stem from that. There were a lot of challenges for him when it came to adjusting to just being together, living together, having a dog together for now, maybe a child one day. We don't know yet. But the point is that I saw him making the effort. I think when the person is showing you that they're making efforts, like even if it's something that's unknown to them, you know, because I think that's part of a relationship. That's part of the work. Both of you are making efforts. Both of you are adjusting when you're getting into something. I think the green flags would be you seeing the actual work. You seeing that the person is actually saying to you, you know what? I don't know what this is, but I'm going to give it a shot. I don't like the ballet, but I'm going to go with you. You know, for example, something along the lines, right? Because my boyfriend, he doesn't understand it. He likes rock music. Going to the symphony is alien for him. But he'll go with me because I enjoy it, right? So that's a green flag. That's something that I would look at as somebody who wants this to work, somebody who's trying to understand me and my likes.
Absolutely. And that goes into someone that listens to you. Back to what you were saying, Lewis. Someone that listens to you and their actions match that. Like, for example, my boyfriend was so sweet. I told him on, I think, date number 3, I said, your communication sucks. And I said it just like that. And he's like, because he does like, oh God, or something, right? Green flag for me was he took it like which is really amazing. Like, and he and I joke around a lot. We have like a really fun relationship. But I can communicate anything to him. And he takes it maturely. Like, okay, he doesn't have to take it, by the way. And that's something for me to be able to be like, well, he's not going to take everything. But it was really sweet. After I had mentioned your communication sucks, he sent me a picture a day or two later, and he had written communication on a Post-it and put it on his desk. And I have to tell you, to your point, Lewis, he has been consistent with communication. So that kind of, Tam and Lewis, that kind of goes to your point. That was just like, okay, this is a really interested and invested guy.
Yeah. So for the green flags that guys would have, or how you know if people are being serious or not. So you're not going to know that in the first few dates. Like, that's like, I'm thinking about dates I've had and like, okay, ideally what things would look like and the conversations with guys, and like, you're not going to know someone. You're not going to know someone for a little while. But I think a really great question is just, how do you know someone quickly or more quickly? How do you get deeper with someone faster? And that's actually something like a project I've been working on here and there for several years. That's an interesting thing that I hold very, very interested in. So when you're on the date, you're going to see all this stuff. So you're going to see okay, either it brings you flowers or not, or just have engaging conversation, or you're teasing each other, or you know what, let me pay for dinner. Okay, sure. And you're just going to see the points of interest that, a human looks like they're interested in you. Hey, I'm going to talk to you. Like, hey, I'm going to compliment you, right? Because that's both for guys and girls, right? So I'm like, okay, I can understand what that feels like too. So when you know of what are necessarily green flags or not, I think this is where it gets interesting, and you can start reflecting on yourself a little bit more deeply, right? So you have green flags like being able to navigate conflict, emotional regulation during times of stress, apologizing, having and showing empathy, showing change through your actions, following through with your words, things of that, all of that. And these are points. But I think how to get deeper with someone faster and how to know kind of their intentions with you a little bit deeper is to really get into how they stack up with your values. And we talked about this a little bit in the last episode. So I mean, if you're responsibility, right? So let's say value of yours is responsibility, and then you are a 30, 40, 50-year-old person, it doesn't matter, and that you're a responsible adult and you have responsibilities, and maybe you are able to take care of everything you need to, your family and your finances and everything. And every so often on a Friday night, you want to get crazy with some girlfriends, or if you're your guy friends or whatever, and get really crazy. Maybe you can knock out Saturday and because you planned it, it's off, right? But you're still responsible. But to someone you're speaking with, like, maybe that sounds obscene. That sounds ridiculous because they are responsible too, but they couldn't think of having a night where they're just, I'm not in college anymore or whatever. But this is why these kinds of lines are a little bit too restrictive. And then where you get deeper faster is having conversations like that. Well, like, I like to have fun. Or like, your communication sucks, right? If you're saying that, if Shanae's saying that. And I think that would be fun to actually have a conversation like that. It's like, oh, maybe it does, right? Okay, maybe that's something I'm missing. Like, maybe I'm something I'm working on. But I think that's a great example if you actually point something at somebody in the style of how you being yourself, right? Maybe you're teasing with someone. Maybe you're actually poking at someone in a certain way. Maybe you could want to joke with someone in a certain way. It's not good. It is kind of a testing, but it's not a really great way to think about it. It's more like, okay, well, how are they going to react? I mean, do they like my style of communication?
Exactly.
Like, because maybe we don't jive well with it. Maybe we do.
Yep.
But if you have that kind of conversation, and if you have that kind of intention with someone, let me find out about someone, like, okay, can we talk about something deeper? Like, I really enjoy talking about history and like how it really, as an example, I like talking about history and, the struggles that we've had as a country and as a people and different cultures. Like, I like to have that. Like, so you know what are your thoughts on that? What are you interested in that? Oh, okay. Well, do you think that, and you go into deeper layers of thought, do you think get something wild? Like, you get something like, what do you think about slavery? What do you think about women or the political climate? Yeah. And it's like, that doesn't need to be a first date thing.
Oh,
but
gosh,
you're finding out earlier on. It's like, oh, okay, well, maybe this person can have engaging conversation. Like, for me, for example, I have a preference that I'd want to be able to speak deeply about different concepts, right? And like, let's have a mental sparring, if you will, a healthy battle or healthy engagement, right? Of just like doing that. And it doesn't have to be like we're so perfect right away, right? But are you willing to have that in the first place? So if you're not, and you could see that early on, okay, we're probably not a good fit for each other. But if you are, then we can work on it even while it's not perfect. So does that kind of answer your question? This is what you take into all these parts. Oh, okay, well, you know what, one more. Okay, so this person is like, well, how do we show that he cares in terms of like having sexy time, right? Being fun or sexy in engagements. For dancing, or going out for drinks, or how I show them with my friends, or my friends gonna instead of overthinking it, is what I like to do. So instead of overthinking things, because I overthink some stuff too, right, is you boil things down. So you boil it down. So for this, is this person aligned with my values? Okay, well, let's find out. To find that out, let me just ask them about stuff I care about and see how they live around that concept.
I giggled a little when you said sexy time, because just the other day, we were about the importance of physical intimacy, sex, and it was funny.
Absolutely.
I sent him in my calendar, I'm like, sexy time, and I put 2 dates which he
You
accepted.
schedule it?
He was being cute about it. To Lewis's point,
That's hot. Yeah.
It was. This was just kind of like being like fun with him. Like, yes, we need this. Put it into your calendar, type thing.
That's good. Yeah, that's really good.
But it was really cute because he then goes and accepts it. And again, that was his follow through. He knew that was important to me. It was all a joke, kind of, just to make sure we put him on our calendars.
There's always a partial truth to every joke. You know that.
Because of our conversation that we had, I was like, yeah, we need to make sure that we put these in these days, right? And there was a specific reason for that. But to me, even though it was just flirtatious and fun, it was really awesome for me to see him go and accept those invitations. You know, he didn't have to. We talked about it. But then he did a further follow through. And again, to me, that's just kind of like investment. Awesome. You know, like
that was a green flag.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah.
Okay, so is there anything else as we wrap up that you think that's important for us to look for that maybe we're overlooking as green flags are concerned?
My thing is, it should be empowering to know that men are probably more scared than they think, or that they look like they are, and that they want things to work out very well, you know, but they're have their own bundles of emotions and insecurities that don't allow them to. And that should be really empowering because that means that they're human as well. They're just like you know, that you have cards and they have cards of power. And instead of having these different kinds of power as to how do I win over the other person, you play the more important and the more important game of just, okay, how do I understand this person more deeply, honestly, which overall is just more attractive in the first place. So do that. Like, don't worry so much about green flags in terms of are they checking these boxes? Because that's something I did also before. Like, I think everybody goes through that. Like, are they checking these boxes? You need to have check boxes of values. Sure.
Right.
But if they're not checking boxes of like, did they automatically try to pay? Did they automatically do it for a little mini superficial stuff? You can verbalize. Right. Because if they have the same values, but it looks different, things could change. One really quick example, like let's say even for your sexy time thing, maybe some guys or some people would be like, that's corny, or like, I want things to be always a surprise and sporadic, you know? Like, I can't schedule my... Am I going to schedule? I've like heard this. I'm like, come on. So I've heard this before. And the thing is like, okay, let's say you have two people with the same value of like, yeah, we need sexy time. Okay. But that looks different. And if one person does exactly what you did, Shanae, like you send out invites. And the other person's like, oh, okay, I get what you're saying. I get what you're trying to do. But I like, you know, everything to be super random. I like it just surprise. A conversation right after that can be like, okay, well, can we agree on something in the middle? Can we agree on like what it looks like, let's say for me, because I like this and I know what you mean, so we can definitely do that. Are you okay with trying both? And like, it's literally conversation. You're creating the relationship. It's not just like, this person's like this, now I have to deal with this. It's you removing your own ego of like, okay, well, I mean, I think they're trying to get to where I'm coming from, but it just looks different. So how do I create this relationship instead of just trying to, you know, latch onto what I'm looking at? That's what to take away.
So I think the way that and let's see if you guys agree, the way that I would round this up as far as green flags, it seems like one green flag to look for, and that's mutual respect and communication. Is this communication jiving? Am I able to speak? Am I able to compromise? Am I able to, and this person and I are just kind of jiving in that. That's how I would kind of look at, like, instead of checking the boxes, how is our communication? How is our respect for each other? Do our values?
Yeah.
By the way, if you want to do this, and I think I've gotten a lot of experience on this because like I have practiced this with just every person that I meet, not just with every romantic interest. So if you really start just doing this with just literally other humans who you run into, when you run into the romantic relationships, you get easier on being able to decipher, oh, if this person's right. Or, oh, maybe I'm being too much, or maybe I needed to do a better job kind of collaborating with this person. It gets easier with that.
Yeah.
I think it's easier for me because of that. So try that, do that. I think that's a good way to make it happen.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Shanae's screen just went out, but it's okay. We can't wait to get you back. Hopefully we'll see you more often. And again,
I appreciate you.
We've got
She's coming back in.
So much positive feedback, and we'd really love to see you back here. So
yeah, you both are great. Thank you very much for having me on. You're amazing.
Thank you. Happy Tuesday, everybody, and just deal with it.